Hey, so this is another live stream here. I think this is the third one for the Serverless Guru channel. This one I'm going to be talking about formal versus informal development planning. And so just to kind of give an idea for why I'm making this video, something that really hits home with me is when you're working as a developer, you're working for a company, maybe you have a process, maybe you use a ticketing system. When you're working on side projects, how do you organize it? And how do you avoid going over the edge, right? Where you spend so much time planning that you don't actually spend time taking action and actually building the stuff, right? And so to kind of talk about this, let's go into like what formal. Let's actually start with informal planning. So informal planning would be, like having a notebook, right? So you take notes in your notebook, you write out little bullet points. It's very easily lost. It kind of helps you keep track of it, but unless you actually have a process where at the end of the day, for instance, you're taking those and moving them into a board or a Trello board, something like that, to actually be able to track it later on, that can easily get lost. One thing that I would do is, if I have a smartphone, I would go and download something like the Trello app. Trello is a way to actually organize tickets. If you're a developer, you probably worked with it before. If you're not a developer or you're aspiring developer, you can download Trello. You can create your own, personal board, ideas board, a board about a side project, something about new tasks that you want to implement at work, and you can track those there, and then you can pull that up on your browser as well, and you can continue to add stuff in there throughout the entire day. And so then you have a kind of a cloud stored way that aggregates all that stuff together. So that would be my first approach to kind of an informal way. Another one that I've done before is I've texted myself with something that's a very I'll do that through essentially like Slack, or I'll do that through text message sometimes. If I want to send something to myself which isn't really thought out, and I don't really know how it fits into anything, right? So it's just like kind of a stream of consciousness. Another way would be creating a slideshow. So one thing about a slideshow is that it allows you to create, the way that I use it is it's kind of weird. I'm doing this right now actually with the side project, but instead of having like a Trello board or a Jira board, I'm actually using a slideshow and Google Slides to organize what I'm working on for a side project. So what that looks like is I'll basically create like an informal list of things that I want to do, and I'll write that down. It could be like check boxes, all that stuff, and I'll almost just put that into Slack, which is a group messaging thing with different channels that you can actually post messages. Same thing could use for Discord or something like that. But I'll basically just put that into some form like that. It's very easy for me to write it. I don't have to spend time thinking about labeling tickets. I don't have to think about anything else. Just like purely, this is what needs to be done. Okay, I sent it, fine. And then after that, I'll start working on it, and I'll start working on it, one by one. And as I make progress, I'll take screenshots. And the same thing I'll do is I'll basically create the slideshow from scratch. I'll make architecture diagrams about like, like basically like wireframes about like, this is also kind of informal. I'm not going into a program like Sketch or something like that, at least for a side project. I'm just kind of doodling something out, drawing the pages, drawing how it could work. And then I'm taking a screenshot of it, then putting it into a slideshow, and then I'll have the full application inside that slideshow. The reason why I do that is because then immediately I have something that I can show people, like a visual. I can show them visually and not just tell them like this is what I want to build. And then that shows, it's much easier to communicate to people about what I'm thinking about, get feedback before I've even built anything. So that decreases the feedback loop, which means that you're going to get more quality information about if the thing that you're doing is worth it or not before you invest tons of time into, say, building out these tickets, right? So I'll do that first. And then as I start actually developing, I'll write, a screen, I'll make progress on it, I'll take a screenshot, I'll send an update through Slack, for instance. I'll also put the update into the slideshow. So I'll put it after that specific page where I did the outline of what it could look like. And I'll just continue adding things in there. And then while I'm reviewing it, I'll just take a screenshot of the way that the page currently looks after I did some development. And I'll say, you know what, there could be a filter here. This could be a button. This could, be a table. We could have like a little metrics thing there, or something like that. And then as I do that, I'll then take another screenshot, and I'll write like text using, I'm on a Mac, so I'll use preview, and I'll just basically add text and I'll circle things, and then I'll just basically put it back into the slideshow. The reason why I do that is because I have like that one centralized place, but also it's like visually I can easily go back and I can flip through it. I can communicate to other people and get their feedback before I've even invested any time into actually, thinking about implementing it. And some of the stuff that I actually take screenshots of, I won't actually work on it for multiple weeks. And so in that way, I can continue to keep evaluating the idea that I had about how it looked visually, and not just text on a on a ticket. So not that way, I've really liked the slideshow. It definitely breaks down. When you think about, let's say the formal approach would be like a Kanban board, and Kanban's a way of doing project management where you basically create little tickets, you create columns, and then as you go through, you move it from in progress to done, or sorry, backlog to in progress to done, to testing, to review, to release, and you can keep creating additional columns. The thing with that is it's very good when you have more than a couple people on the project, right? So it's much better even if you have two people, right? So if I'm working on something specifically to like a side project where I don't really have a lot of external people getting involved in it, then I don't need as much formal process because a lot of it's in my head. And then what I'm trying to retain, I'm putting into a slideshow or something like that, so I can communicate that to other people to get feedback. But in a bigger team, the problem with an informal approach is that people don't have visibility, right? And so one thing that I've learned on the serverless guru side is we have a lot of people that are actually, offshore, and they're outside of the United States. And so they're working with serverless guru, but they may be in a different time zone, and the time zone may be radically different. And so, that's where visibility becomes a really big thing, because the slideshow helps in that case. But if I had something a little bit more informal, like let's say it was like a notebook, or let's say that I was posting things in Slack only. The problem with that is that the understanding there is like way less, and the structure of it, right? So when you have a bullet point list, what's the priority of it? What's the order of it? And I think that that's where the informal approach really breaks down. Whereas Trello and potentially Jira, which are two Kanban ticketing systems, they have other things that they can do. With those, you can actually prioritize the tickets. You can create subtasks underneath them. You can add images as well. You can have different columns. You can segregate those by different team members that are working on them, things like that. And based on that, you can end up creating a very productive system that's very visible to everyone. And you can even share that out to people that aren't inside your team, that would maybe be evaluating, like maybe an engineering manager or somebody above the engineering manager. They could quickly look and see what is the progress of the project. It's also very nice because it tracks how many things are actually getting done. And so then you can actually create, I want to say, a burn chart, which basically shows how fast, oh, it may not be a burn chart, but it's basically showing how fast you're actually finishing tasks and getting things done. And then based on that, you can then use that as a business value metric or a business metric to actually share with leadership. And they can either, one, choose to go faster by adding additional people, or they can basically just very easily get feedback into what the team's actually working on, and then make adjustments. So that's really important. So that would be, formal. If you have a large team, I would go with a formal process. If you have a small team, I'd probably still lean towards an informal formal process. That would be like a Trello board that doesn't have a ton of structure behind it, but still in something that can have structure in the future. Because what you want to think about is this project only going to ever be one person, or is there going to be in the future, is there going to be more people? And also, is this your main job, right? So that's one thing I wrote down. Is this a main project? Is this your full-time job, or is this a side project? Because if it's a main project, then you might be able to have more things inside your head, because you're going to get that context, that consistency every single day. It's going to connect the dots, and then when you start the next day, you're going to already be building off of the last day. But if let's say if it's a side project, and you have a whole bunch of other things going on, you may not touch it for a week or 2 weeks or even a month. And so in that case, even with one person, you may not be able to remember exactly where everything is, right? So you have to create structure where all that stuff's kind of planned out. And if you can do that properly, you can actually make a side project and continue to work on it. Even if there's gaps in time, a week or 2 weeks, because you have, for instance, a very informal list of things. You have a slideshow of where the progress was when you last touched it. You have messages in Slack for status updates. And if you correlate the status updates with the slideshow with the current working app, you can really easily jump back into exactly where you were. I would say the slideshow, I keep bringing it up. The reason I'm bringing it up because I found it very interesting. It's the first time I've used a slideshow to organize things. But I do like the fact that I can easily open it. It can even have it offline, even without starting up the actual project itself, because it's not hosted anywhere. And I can actually still get feedback on what's being worked on. and what I'm imagining for the future of it. And I can take notes on there as well. And that's, there's a lot of interesting things around that side. Yeah. So let's see, we talked about time zone, internal versus external. So that would be like, is it one person? Is there multiple people on your team? Um, Something that I would say is, this is a big one that I try to follow is don't let any idea fade. So a really big thing there is anytime that you have an idea, it may seem like it's a really good idea, but then the next moment it may be gone. And so what could be really good, something that I do is I try to track as many ideas as soon as I get an idea, I basically write it down somewhere. And so, inside of inside of the Slack channel that we have at Serverless Guru, we have an ideas channel with like hundreds of ideas over the past, you know, 2 years. I have tons of other things like that for myself personally, with tons of ideas that just like pop in based on just seeing context of things. And so I think that that's really important. So when you get an idea for a new feature, why does something make sense now that didn't make sense 2 days ago? Write that down, keep track of it, because it can feel like, oh, I'll get to that tonight. But then if it's a side project, for instance, that may be 2 weeks from now. And in 2 weeks, you may completely forget. And the problem with that is that if you forget too much, right, if you don't have enough context about what was actually supposed to be worked on, you can easily slip into an area where you can lose motivation on the project, and then that's where most side projects die. So you definitely want to make sure that you're keeping enough context in between your sessions to make progress continuously. The other one would be don't consume so much with the process you don't do the action, right? So you don't want your process to be so large that you're not actually taking action, right? So that when you find yourself spending so much time creating tickets, organizing them, tagging them on priority and all these things, and it's a side project, because you may do that for work, but that's when you have a team of 4 people, right? That's when every single day I have to show up at 9 a.m. and I have to work till 5, and I have to be doing this, right? So you're going to make progress at work, but you may not make progress at home. And so you definitely don't want to overthink the process and get too bogged down in creating a system that's meant to work for 5 or 10 people, but won't work as well for one person, right? It's like you can sit there, and I've done this before. I've tried to learn a foreign language, and I was trying to learn Thai, and one of the things that I did, and I'm still actively learning Thai, but like one of the things that I did, which didn't work, is I went through this YouTube channel and I just took 200 videos and I tried to put them into a playlist. I spent probably 30 minutes evaluating all these different videos that I might watch, and by the end of it, I was burnt out from organizing the thing, and I switched to something different, and I never went back to it. And so I'm assuming that a lot of people are like me in that way, that you may think so much about this outcome, about like, if I do these things, I'll be at this result. And then you may not actually watch the video. You may just plan on how you might do it to get to that result, but then not actually do the first step, which is actually watching the video. So in that way, it's, one thing that I would say to myself is maybe don't put 200 videos into a playlist. Watch one video and only that one video. And then when you finish, click the next video, right? Don't ever schedule 2 videos that you're going to watch in sequence, because the second you do that, it's like you're too much trying to like get ahead of something before you've actually gotten through this part. So you're already focusing on something that's not the immediate thing in front of you, and that's going to cause you to kind of like fracture off and split your learning. So that would be one comment there. Yeah, so I mean that would be informal versus formal planning for development tasks. I would say that if you're a small team, informal can work effectively. If you're a larger team, formal approaches are definitely going to work. There's a ton of stuff out there around Jira, Trello, all that stuff. Big point, don't get so bogged down in the process that you don't actually make progress. That's a really big one. It's very easy as engineers to overthink things and to over engineer, as the word goes. And so, one thing that I got told by my mentor was I think it was like the devil is in like like optimization, like optimization before you're ready. I can't remember the exact quote, but basically it means like you don't want to spend so much time now trying to optimize something that you don't even know it's going to work yet, right? So if you create 10, 20, 100 things, right? Like there's 200 videos. What if I would have watched that first video and realized, oh, actually these videos are not great. This is not going to help me at all. Well, I just wasted all that time basically thinking that this was going to be the result of it, that this was the secret to get through, right? And actually it turned out not to be. So Yeah, let me know if you have any comments on this. Hopefully, other people get something out of this. Informal versus formal. Maybe the slideshow thing's interesting. Could talk a little bit more about that. If a video about how we actually do Trello or Jira tickets, or how I might actually structure a slideshow version, or what I use to do architecture diagrams, all that stuff. If that would be interesting, let us know in the comments, and we can create a special, video just for that. All right. Well, this was Ryan Jones, CEO, CTO, Serverless Guru. I guess like quick plug, Serverless Guru is a cloud consulting company that specializes in serverless application development. And as we say, we can help you on every step of your serverless journey. One thing that we do with clients is we help them plan and build out processes, build blueprints, and then we take those patterns and we work them into the teams and we do trainings and we make sure that we level up the entire team versus just having us have the knowledge and implement it individually. We actually work on bringing the entire organization up. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.